spot for most dangerous weapon in the world, but there are some that are a little bit more insidious and potentially worse. Take, for example, biological weapons. Think about some of the worst plagues that have ever infested mankind. Now imagine human ingenuity in a laboratory used to make such plagues worse, and now imagine releasing those upon your enemy. The reason they're so extra dangerous is because of the way they spread, and the fact that once you open the Pandora's box of biological warfare, you generally lose the ability to shut the box again. You may exchange a few nuclear weapons with an opponent and decide to stop. Once you open up that box and unleash super smallpox, or what have you, you can't turn that off again. Another reason it's very dangerous is that super smallpox doesn't differentiate between the people you targeted and everyone else that it may spread to. It's a bit of a doomsday device when you think about how something like that could backfire on the very people who decide to use it. It's a little like deciding to get rid of your next-door neighbor in your apartment complex by burning down his place. The potential for the fire to hurt you is very real. But sometimes, if you run out of options, gambling like that might make sense. In late 1917, where we are in this story, even though we've been using a sliding timescale, that's about where we are. In late 1917, the Germans are desperate enough to try all sorts of things, including the equivalent of biological warfare, but instead of using some sort of contagious disease, they're using contagious ideas. But you might be able to make a case that in this situation, an actual disease would have been preferable. Whenever I think about this idea, I think about Napoleon, the famous French emperor of the late 1700s, early 1800s, who was such a force in Europe. Napoleon was someone who spread an intellectual contagion. I remember professors in college suggesting that this was the thing that scared the kings and czars and emperors of Europe the most about Napoleon. Because Napoleon arose in the wake of the French Revolution, the era where Frenchmen were infused with these ideas of revolution, of equality, of republicanism, all these things that seem relatively moderate to people today, even beneficial. But those were the scariest things on earth to people who were kings and emperors and czars. And many of them figured that they would eventually be able to throw the French out of these territories and get their thrones back, but they were less sure about their ability to cleanse their population of these dangerous radical ideas that French occupying troops had spread to them. In fact, many historians believe that the famous revolutionary period in the middle 1800s was the blossoming of seeds that were planted by Napoleon's troops as they occupied all these countries, talked to the locals, and spread the equivalent of an intellectual contagion. Of course, if you're one of those types who would view the ideas of the American Revolution or the French Revolution or the ideas of the thinkers who helped prompt those revolutions as a negative thing, then perhaps you would view the 1800s as an example not of a seed flowering into some wonderful plant, but as a virus beginning to morph and mutate and evolve into new and maybe more dangerous forms. The 1800s is, up until that time period, almost certainly the greatest period for intellectual examination of forms of government that's ever existed. And part of